Namaste everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. This is the beginning of the week. So Monday to Thursday we're going to have Bindoji's Bhagavad Gita sessions from Advaita perspective starting at 8:30 p.m. IST. And today is the beginning of chapter 1. And so we have labeled it chapter
3.
Chapter 3, session 1. All the other recordings are available on Clubhouse, or you can go to the links provided in the chat from YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And there's another citation for a book that is also given, Imaginary Door, authored by Artemisia, which you can access through Amazon. And for housekeeping, I'll be closing the chat and hand raising when Bindoji is conducting the class. And then we'll have another half an hour, during which time you can come up and ask questions or clarify doubts. With that, Bindoji, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and welcome to all. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murtiveda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudramarutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramो Vanishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pasyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Na Vidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. Oh. The second chapter which we discussed till now was basically a synopsis of Bhagavad Gita which Krishna wanted to tell Arjuna. There he said that you are crying for those who are not deserving crying, or those on whom you need to be crying. And what is coming and going, or what is transient in nature, Pandita Anishojanti. The learned people do not cry over that or lament over that. This is how he started that, and then he went on describing what is the self and non-self, and then he took him through the other aspects of life also, including the Karma Yoga. So naturally Arjuna, who has been listening with attention, because he said, Shishyasteham Shadimam Prapannam. Please, I come to you as my Guru. I am surrendering to you. Please help me. So naturally as a disciple, when he is there, he is all ears to Bhagavan, Krishna's words. And there he is talking about Buddhi Yoga and Karma Yoga, or Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga. And there, when he came to the closing, Siddha Prajna aspect, he was giving such a feeling that the Buddhi Yoga or Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga, the knowledge, is superior to Karma Yoga or Karma, basically. So as a natural reaction to an apt listener, the question which Arjuna is going to ask in the beginning of the 3rd chapter is nothing but natural. Chayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tat king karmani ghorema niyojeyasi keshava. If you are saying that the path of knowledge is superior to the path of action, then why are you deploying me forcefully into an action of this treacherous or horrendous job of war? Is the question which Arjuna is asking, and then one more question he is asking. So, it is important that we read the preface to the 3rd chapter by Shankaracharya, which clarifies a lot of points for us before we embark into the verses per se and try to decode it. Because once we understand the preface of the 3rd chapter, we will be having a clarity why Krishna is answering Arjuna in such a fashion. By just reading the verses and the translation thereof, we won't get the exact technicalities behind it. So before starting the 3rd chapter, first verse, we will see what Shankaracharya has to say about the situation, and he is also taking on his predecessors who has written commentary on Gita, quoting them and referring to them, saying that their preface and their commentary are contradicting each other. Therefore, a person reading their book or the previous book, which is not available today, for whatever reason we don't have any manuscript, anything left of those things, except the reference which is appearing in Shankaracharya's commentary. This type of background is also very important. Why that confusion has prevailed before Shankaracharya here? Because they were all depending upon a commentator called Vrittikara or commentator called Bhartr Prapancha. This is the names which are being found in the commentaries in other places also, especially people like by Anandagiri, etc. So let us go into the commentary of Shankaracharya as a preface, then we will go to the verse. Shastrasya pravritti nivritti vishayabhute dve buddhi bhagavata nirdishte sankhya buddhi yoge buddhi sankhya buddhi yoge buddhi idicha. The Lord has indicated 2 kinds of understanding as a subject matter of the scriptures, injunctions and prohibitions. The understanding of Sankhya, called Sankhya Buddhi, and the understanding of Yoga, Yoga Buddhi. That they are the Pravritti and Nivritti Vishaya Bhute. They are basically, one is talking about the Pravritti Vishaya and the other is talking about the Nivritti Vishaya. So these are described in the Shastra as Bhagavata Nirtishta. Krishna himself is referring to that, which we will see later. Tatra Prajahati Yada Kaman Ityarabhya A Adhyaya Parisamapte Sankhya Buddhyasritanam Sanyasam Kartavyam Ukta Tesham Tan Nishtayaiva Cha Kritartata Ukta Esha Brahmi Sthiti. Prajahadi Yadan Kaman, the 55th verse of the second chapter. And concluding with Esha Brahmi Sthiti in the 72nd verse. So beginning from when one completely abandons all desires of the mind, that is Prajahadi Yada Kaman, 55. Up to the end of the chapter, where having stated that renunciation, sannyasa, is to be practiced by those who have taken the recourse to the understanding of Sankhya, their fulfillment through the steadfast abidance in that alone, Brahmi Sthiti, has been declared. This is the Brahmi Sthiti. Arjunaya cha karmanyevadhikaraste mate sangastva karmani. The 47th verse. Iti karmaiva kartavyam muktavan yoge buddhim ashritya na tataha eva shreya praptim uktavan. So he said about those who are into abandoning all desires of the mind, prajahati yada kaman. For them, sannyasa and fulfillment through steadfast abidance in that Brahmi Sthiti. This was told by Krishna. But for Arjuna, he mentioned that karmani eva adhikara te. Te means for you. But whereas in the place of where he mentioned Brahmi Sthiti, he didn't directly address Arjuna as this is for you. Ma te sangaha tu akarmani. There also the te means to you. The word was given very clearly, means it is the intent of Sri Krishna that instruction for Arjuna is Karma Yoga. So, Arjunaya che karmanyevadhikaraste mate sangastva karmani iti karma eva karma muktavan yoga buddhim ashritya na tataha eva shreya praptim uktavan. So, for Krishna, Arjuna, the shreya prapti was not directly advised. Tadetat alakshya pari akulikrita buddhihi Arjuna uvacha. Arjuna is very clever, so he noticed this, that while talking about the Buddhi Yoga, the Sankhya Yoga, etc., Krishna did not address to me that for you. So there was some sort of bewilderment in the part of Arjuna. So whose understanding had become not confused anymore, but he wondered, or he had a bewildered look. Why are you talking to me of our karma when you are talking so much good about sannyasa and jnana yoga or buddhi yoga? Kadam bhaktaya shreyorthim yat sakshat shreya prapti sadhanam sankhya buddhi nishtam shravayitva mam karmani drishtena anekartha yukte paramparyenapi anaikantika shreya prapti phale niyujyat iti yuktaha पर्याकुली भावः अर्जुनस्य तत् नरूपश्च प्रश्नः ज्ञायसी चेत् इत्यादि प्रश्न अपाकरण वाक्यं च भगवतः युक्तं यथोक्तं विभाग विषये शास्त्रे. So his bewilderment, this wonder was entirely justified. How is that after having me, a devoted seeker for the highest good, listening to Sankhya, Shastra and understanding based on steadfastness, etc., which is the direct means of attaining the highest good, he now engages me in action, which is visibly fraught with many evils and whose outcome, the attainment of good, is also uncertain, even through the chain of successive steps. Arjuna's bewilderment is thus well-founded. And the question beginning with Jayasi Chet Karmanaste, that first verse of the third chapter, is entirely keeping in line with the same what has been running in the mind of all of us. And the reply by Krishna resolving that question is also appropriate with respect to the scripture that deals with the division described above. What are the division? That pravritti, nivritti, vishaya. But kechitu, but some, this is referring to the previous commentaries which is there. Arjunasya prasnartham anyatha kalpayitva tat prapti kululam bhagavataha prativachanam varnayanti yada cha atmanaha sambandha grande gitartho nirupitaha tat pratikulam cha iha puna prashna prativachanayoho artham nirupayanti. But the previous commentators, having construed the meaning of Arjuna's question differently, like describe the Lord's reply as being opposed to, and just as they have determined the meaning of the Gita in their own introductory treatise on the relation part, that is the Sambandha Grantha, the preface. So here again, they determine the meaning of the question and reply in a manner contradictory to each other. So, those commentaries which were there available was needed a correction. Therefore, Shankaracharya had to refer to that so that those who are following after Shankaracharya will understand where the earlier Bhartara Prapancha or Vrtikaran, who is being referred here as the Kechitanye. That should not be taken as the valid means of knowledge. The reason is that he is going to explain that why is he opposing that. For us also we should know that, because it is not that we are going to read the previous commentary, but the subjects which Shankaracharya is going to deal with now is very important for us to know what is good for us. We have get a proper guidance from that. Katham, how so? Tatra sambandha grande tavat सर्वेषाम् आश्रमिणाम् ज्ञानकर्मणयोः समुच्चयः गीताशास्त्रे निरूपितः अर्थः इत्युक्तम् पुनः विशेषताञ्च यावज्जीवत् श्रुति चोदनानि कर्माणि परित्यज्य केवलादेव ज्ञानात् मोक्षप्राप्यते इत्येतत् एकान्तेनैव प्रतिषिद्धम् इति. What does it say? In the introductory treatise by the earlier commentator, they have stated that the meaning established in the Gita Shastra is a samuchaya, combination of both what you call jnana and karma, knowledge and action, for all members of all ashramas. That is brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasi. For all of them. And further, they have specifically maintained that the liberation being attainable from knowledge alone is absolutely and categorically prohibited. How? After abandoning the actions enjoyed by the Shruti for one's entire lifetime. That is, if one abandons the actions enjoined by the Shruti and is now taking to the path of liberation through knowledge is absolutely and categorically prohibited by those commentaries by the Vrittikara. Ihatu ashrama vikalpam darshayata yavat jiva shruti chodanan meva karmanam parityagaha uktaha tat kadam idrisham viruddhamartam arjunaya bruyat bhagavan Shrota va katam viruddhamartam eva avadarayet. Now, Shankaracharya is asking a counter question. But here, by pointing to a choice among the ashramas, abandonment of those very actions enjoyed in the Shruti for one's entire lifetime has been declared. There is no doubt about it. If that is declared, how then could Lord speak such a contradictory meaning to Arjuna? Or how could a listener comprehend a contradictory meaning? So Shankaracharya is now the Purvapakshi the opponent for the previous commentators. Then he is explaining that Tatra etat syat grihasthanameva shrauda karma parityagena kevaladeva jnanat moksha pratishidyate natu ashramandaranam iti etadapi purvottara viruddhameva. If one might say, it is only for the householders that liberation through knowledge alone, after abandoning the Vedic rituals action, Shrauta karma, is not so for those belonging to the other ashrama. But this too is self-contradictory with respect to what was said before and after. So, when he explained it, that how this, his own question, he answering that if somebody is to say that it is only for the householders that they can abandon the Vedic rituals, Shrauta karma, and not for those belonging to other ashrama. He is saying that, but this too is self-contradictory with respect to what was said before and after by Krishna himself. Katam sarvashraminam ज्ञान कर्मणयोः समुच्चयो गीताशास्त्रे निश्चितः अर्थः इति प्रतिज्ञाय इह कथं तद् विरुद्धं केवलादेव ज्ञानात् मोक्षं ब्रूयात् आश्रमान्तरेण. So Shankaracharya is now putting the question. How, having made the claim that the meaning definitely established in the Gita Shastra of a combination of knowledge and action for all members or all ashramas, how can there be a contradiction to that very claim? Like speaking of liberation through knowledge alone for those belonging to the other ashramas, if it is given that is a combination of action and knowledge, it should be applicable for all members. But at the same time, speaking of liberation through knowledge alone for those who belonging to other ashramas, that is Garhastya and Sannyasa. Atha matam srauda karma apekshaya etad vajanam kevaladeva jnanat srauda karma rahitat grihasthanam moksha pradishidyate iti. Tatra grihasthanam vidyanam api smartam karma avidyamanat upekshya jnanadeva kevalat iti ityuchyate iti etatapi viruddham. Now he is bringing one more contradiction to that. Now, if the view is that this statement is made with reference to Vedic ritual actions, meaning liberation is prohibited for householders from knowledge alone, that is, knowledge devoid of Srauta karma, and that in this context, the actions enjoyed by the Smriti that does not exist for householders is treated as though it does not exist. Hence, the expression from knowledge alone is used. This also becomes contradictory. So the Purva Pakshi is asking Shankaracharya, Katham grihastasya eva smarta karmana samuchitat jnanat moksha pradishyate natu asramandananam iti katham vivekibihi shakyam avadharyayitum. How so? How can it be ascertained by discerning persons that it is only for the householder that liberation is prohibited from knowledge combined with smarta karma, because they are supposed to do agnihotram ajiva paryantam up till the end of their life. So, but for those who belonging to the other ashrama, so for grahasya, the smarta karmas or the shruti karmas should be followed, and for others, it can be a mixture of both. Kincha, moreover, यदि मोक्षसाधनत्वेन स्मार्तानि कर्माणि उद्धरेतसाम् ऊर्ध्वरेतसाम् समुचीयन्ते तथा गृहस्थस्यापि ईशताम् स्मार्तारेव समुच्चयोः न श्रौते. Moreover, if the actions of the Shruti are to be combined with the knowledge as a means of liberation for those who are Urdharedas, means brahmacharis, celibates who have sublimated their Urdharedam, the meaning is that those who have sublimated their vital energy. Then for the householders too, let there be a combination of smarta actions alone and not srauta karmas. So there is a combination of smarta karma and srauta karma, shruti karma and smriti karma for the householder. Only for that brahmacharis, the combined knowledge means as liberation. Ata shrauta smartaischa grihastasya eva samuchayaha mokshaya urdhvaretasam tu smarta karmas matra samuchitat jnanat mokshayiti. Tatra evam sthiti grihastasya ayasa bahulyat shrautam smartam cha bhud dukkha rupam karma shirasi aropitam syat. Now, if the position is that the liberation of the householder comes through a combination of both Shruti and Smriti actions and with knowledge, while for those who are brahmacharis, the liberation comes from knowledge combined with smarta actions alone, then in that case, due to the great burden of effort involved, the householder would have a heavy load of both Rauta, Shruti and Smriti, both of which are of the nature of much suffering placed upon his head. Atha garhasyasya eva ayasa bala bahulya karanat moksha syat na ashramantaranam shrauta nitya karma rahitatvat iti tadatyas etat sarvopanishatsu itihasa purana yoge shastreshu cha jnanangatvena mumukshoho sarva karma sannyasa vidanat ashrama vikalpa samuchaya vidanaha cha shruti smritayoho. Now, if the position is that the liberation belongs to the householder alone on account of greater burden or the effort involved, and not for those other ashramas, since they lack the obligatory Shrauta actions, that too is incorrect. Because in all the Upanishad and in the Itihasa, Purana, Yoga Shastra, the renunciation of all actions, Sarva Karma Sannyasa, is prescribed for seekers of liberation as a constituent part of the knowledge, Jnana Anga. And also both Shruti and Smriti prescribe either a choice between ashramas or a combination of them. So here also, Shankaracharya is saying that if this insistence on the people of the household that they should do both Shruti actions and Smriti actions, and for the others, like Brahmachari, etc., only the Shruti actions as is to be done, that is incorrect. Because in all Upanishad, Itihasa, Purana, Yoga Shastra and all other places where Sarva Karma Sannyasa is prescribed for any seeker of liberation, a constituent part of knowledge, Jnana Anga, and also both Shruti Smriti prescribe either a choice between the ashramas or a combination of both. So both Shruti and Smriti is insisting on, Shruti Smriti, Purana, Yoga Shastra is insisting on the path of knowledge should be accompanied with the Sarva Karma Sannyasa as a Jnananga. And they also prescribe a choice of which ashrama combination. From Brahmacharya eva sannyasa. Directly from Brahmacharya one can become a sannyasi. Or from Brahmacharya you can go to Garhastya and do the Shrauta Smrita karmas and then take Vanaprastha and sannyasa. Or from sannyasa Garhastya, any time if he feels that the karmas are not going to yield the jnana, which is the moksha karana, which is the means of liberation. Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmanas, nirveda maya. So that is those are all the householders which is being referred there. So siddhas tarhi sarva ashrimeina jnana karmaneyo samucheha na mumuksho sarva karma sannyasa virodat. So the question is now being asked. Is the combination of knowledge and action for all members of all ashrama then established? Putreshana vitteshanayascha lokeshanayascha vyuthaya atha bhikshacharyam charanti. Brihadaranya Upanishad 3.5.1. Tasmat nyasam esham tapasam atiriktah ahu. Taittiriya in the 79. Nyasya evat api acharet. There also again in Taittiriya. Iti na karmana na prajaya dhanena tyagenege amrudatva manashuhu. Again Taittiriya. Iti cha brahmacharyat eva pravrajet. Jabala Upanishad. Ityadi shrutayaha. So the answer is being given that is the combination of knowledge and action for all members. So here the answer is no. Na. Because renunciation of all actions is prescribed for the seeker of liberation. As the Shruti declares, having risen above the desires for sons, wealth, and the world, they live the life of mendicancy. Brihadaranya Upanishad. And therefore, they declare Nyasa to be superior to all the austerities. Taittiriya. Renunciation alone is exalted for all. Again Taittiriya. Not by action, not by progeny, not by wealth. By renunciation alone did some attain immortality. Again Taittiriya. Such also are the Shruti passages, as one should take renunciation directly from the state of Brahmacharya in the Jabala Upanishad and others. Tyaja dharma adharmam cha ube satyanrute tyaja. Ube satyanrute tyaktva yena tyajasi tat tyaja. In the Mahabharata. Samsaram eva nissaram drishtva saradit drikshaya pravrajitya krita deya aha param vairagyam ashritaha. Iti Brihaspati. Karmana badyate jantur vidya cha vimuchyate. Tasmat karma na kurvanti yatayaha paradarshinaha. Mahabharata. Iti Shukanuशासनम. Iha api cha sarva karmani manasa sanyasya. Bhagavad Gita, 5th verse, 5th adhyaya, 5th chapter, 13th sloka, ityadi. So he is quoting many verses again. Abandon dharma and adharma, abandon both truth and untruth, having abandoned both truth and untruth, abandon by which you abandon. See, abandon that by which you abandon that also. This is the sarva sannyasa. That is Brihaspati is saying, seeing samsara itself as void of essence and desirous of seeing what is truly essential. Some renounce the world without having married, having taken the recourse of supreme dispassion. And the instruction from Shuka declares that the creature is bound by action and the liberated by knowledge. Therefore, ascetics who seek farthest shore do not perform action in the Mahabharata. And here in Gita 2, the 5th chapter, having renounced all actions by mind and so forth. Mokshasya cha akaryatvat mumukshoho karmanarthakyam. And since liberation is not something to be produced, akarya, action is meaningless for those who are seeking liberation. Nityani pratyavaya parihara arthani iti chet. So the question from the opponent. If it is said that the obligatory nityaka actions are meant for avoiding incurring sin, pratyavaya, through their non-performance, no. Asanyasi vishayatvad pratyavaya aprapte. Because the incurring of such sins applies only to those who do not have renounced the action. So those who have renounced the action, there is no pratyavaya. Nahi agni karyadya karanat sanyasinaha pratyavaya kalpayidum shakyah. Yada brahmacharina sanyasinam api karminam. Because it is not possible to suppose that a sin accrues to a sannyasi from non-performance of Agnihotra and similar rites, just as does not accrue to brahmacharis and even to non-renunciants who are performers of action. Na tavat nityanam karmanam abhava deva bhava rupasya pratyavayasya utpatti kalpayidum shakyah. Kadam asataha satyajet iti Chandogya Upanishad iti asataha sajjanmasa sambhava shruvate. It is not possible to suppose that the positive entity, bhava rupa, such as sin can arise merely from the absence of performance of actions. Because of the Shruti declaration, how can being be born from non-being? Chandogya Upanishad, which established the impossibility of being arising from non-being. So he is countering that by saying that if only an action is done by wrong procedure, there can be a sin. A person who is not even taking up an action or a karma, how can there be a sin from the action which he has not performed, for which he quoted the Kadam asataha sajjayate, that from the non-being, how can there be a being born? So non-action, how can it give rise to a papa, which is the result of an action? Yadi vihata karanat asambhavat api pratyavayam bruyat veda tada anarthakaraha vedaha apramanityuktam syat vihitasya karanakaranyoho dukkhamatra phalatvad. If the Veda were to declare even an impossible sin arising from a non-performance of what is enjoyed, then the Veda would be said to be a source of harm and therefore not a valid means of knowledge. Apramana. Veda will become apramana. If the Veda is producing sin for an action which is not being done, or whether what is enjoyed is performed or not, the result would only be suffering. That is explaining that. Tadacha karakam shastram na jnapakam. Tadacha karakam shastram na jnapakam ityanupapanartam kalpaitam syat. Nacha tad ishtam. And in that case, the scripture would be supposed to be an incoherent meaning, and that it is mere impeller to action rather than a revealer of truth, which is unacceptable. Tasmat, therefore, na sannyasinam karmani. Actions do not apply to sannyasis. Ataha jnana karmanayoho samuchchaya anupapatti jayasi chet karmanah ste mata buddhi iti arjunasya prashna anupapattescha. Hence, the combination of knowledge and action is untenable. And also, because Arjuna's question, if you consider knowledge superior to action, would become pointless. Now, this part is more important. The earlier one is more of a technical thing between the Shruti, Smriti, Vedas and applicable to people who are following Vedas. But from now onwards, what is being told is applicable to us also. That if you consider the knowledge superior to action, it will become pointless if Arjuna's question was Jayasi chet karmanaste. यदि हि भगवता द्वितीया अध्याये ज्ञानं कर्म च समुच्चयित्वा त्वया अनुष्ठेयम् इत्युक्तं स्यात् तदा अर्जुनस्य प्रश्न अनुपपन्नः ज्यायसि चेत् कर्मणा मता बुद्धि. That is, for if in the second chapter Krishna had said, you must practice both knowledge and action in combination, then Arjuna's question, if you consider knowledge superior to action, would have been pointless. It is a meaningless question where Krishna would have said, I never said that. Because the question which is asking from Arjuna is after he has, it is not that he heard it in a fleeting way or anything. He is with all ears to Krishna, he asked, heard it. Karmanye vyadikaraste. But when it comes to Stita Prajna, he never mentioned you should be a Stita Prajna. Arjunaya ched buddhi karmani tvaya anushtheya ityukte ya karmanaha jayasi buddhihi asapi ukta eva iti tat kim karmani gore mam niyojayasi keshava iti upalambha prasnaha va na katanjana upapadyate. If both knowledge and action were declared by Lord to Arjuna as things to be practiced by him, then knowledge which is superior to action would also have been already declared. In that case, the reproach of the question, then why do you engage me in this terrible action, Krishna? Arjuna's question could not have been justified in any way whatsoever. Nacha Arjunasya eva jayasi buddhihi na anushtheyaha iti bhagavata uktam purvam iti kalpayitum yuktam yena jayasi chet iti vivekataha prasnaha syat. Nor is it reasonable to suppose that Krishna had previously declared that knowledge that though superior was not to be practiced by Arjuna specifically, by which supposition the question that if you consider it superior might be construed as discerning enquiry. Yadi punaha yuktas ekasya purushasya jnana karmanayoho virodat yugapat anushtanam na sambhavati iti bhinna purusha anushtheyatvam bhagavata purvam muktam syad tato ayam prasnaha upapanna jayasi chet ityadi. If on the other hand, if Krishna had previously declared that since the knowledge and action are contradictory, they cannot be simultaneously practiced by a single person at the same time, and therefore they are to be practiced by different persons, then also this question, if you consider it superior and so forth, would have been justified. Avivekataha prashna kalpana ayam api भिन्न पुरुषेण अनुष्ठेयत्वेन ज्ञान कर्म निष्ठयोः भगवतः प्रतिवचनं न उपपद्यते न च अज्ञान निमित्तं भगवत् प्रतिवचनं कल्पनीयम्. But even if one were to suppose the question arose from the lack of discernment on the part of Arjuna, and the Krishna's reply establishing the two steadfast paths of knowledge and action as meant for different persons would not be coherent. Nor should Krishna's reply be construed as being occasioned by ignorance. Krishna did not utter a statement in ignorance. Asmacha भिन्न पुरुषेण अनुष्ठेयत्वेन ज्ञान कर्म निष्ठयोः भगवतः प्रतिवचन दर्शनात् ज्ञान कर्मणयोः समुच्चय अनुपपत्ति. And from the very fact that we see Krishna's reply presenting steadfast paths of knowledge and action as meant different persons, the combination of knowledge and action is untenable. Tasmat kevaladeva jnanat moksha ityesham artaha nishchitaho gitasu sarvopanishatsu cha. Therefore, the meaning definitively established in the Gita and all in the Upanishad is this alone, that liberation comes from knowledge alone. Jnana karmanoho ekam vada nischitya. Bhagavad Gita, 2nd verse, 3rd chapter. Iti eka vishayas eva prarthana anuvapanna ubayoho samuchaya sambhave kuru karmeva tasmat tvam. Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 14th verse. Iti cha jnana nishta sambhavam arjunasya avadharanena darshayishyati. And entreaty, tell me decisively just one, directed at knowledge and action, would be pointless if the combination of both were possible. For then there would be no need to single out one. And the statement, therefore you must perform action alone, in Gita 4th chapter 15th verse, will show by way of definitive assertion that steadfast abidance in knowledge is not possible for Arjuna. So that is why when he said karmanye vadigaraste, he used the word te toward Arjuna because Krishna knew that steadfast abidance in knowledge is not possible for Arjuna. Therefore, he insisted on karma. But Arjuna asked, what is the nature of the Sthita Prajna? So he explained the Sthita Prajna and etc. But never said, oh Arjuna, you should become a Sthita Prajna. No. So the first verse, Arjuna uvacha jayasi chet karmanaste madha buddhir janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. Jayasi chet karmanaha te mata buddhihi janardana tat kim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. So he is addressing Arjuna, he is addressing Krishna, one as Janardana and one as Keshava in each line. Let us look in the word. Jhayasi means higher or superior. Chet, if it is superior. What? Karmanaha. Karmanaha, it can be either than action or from action or comparison to action. Te, by you, mata, regarded or considered, buddhihi, intellect or understanding. Here it is the understanding, not intellect. If, O Krishna, O Janardana, knowledge is considered by you to be superior to action, tad kim karmani ghore mam. Then, tad means then. Kim, why or for what reason? Karmani ghore, in terrible actions. Mam, me, niyojayasi, do you engage me, Keshava? Then why do you urge me into this dreadful action, O Keshava? So, the karmanaha, which is both ablative and instrumentative, this is establishing a comparison between karma and knowledge. And buddhi is the word used by Arjuna because Krishna was talking about buddhi yoga, achanjala buddhi, etc. in the addressing to Arjuna. So therefore he also uses the same word buddhi. And here it stands for jnana buddhi, knowledge oriented understanding, not mere intellect. And the word niyojayasi is a causative in force. why do you set me to act, or why do you force me into action? It is not a why do you, merely you advise. And ghore karmani means with horrors of action, with moral horror already weighing on Arjuna. So there is a pressure point in Arjuna. Arjuna is not confused, or is he pressing for any logical inconsistency. If knowledge, renunciation-oriented wisdom, that is sannyasa jnana, is higher, why am I being driven into a violent action at all, is the doubt which comes in the mind of Arjuna. This verse forces Krishna to clarify the relation between jnana and karma, which directly leads into the doctrine of nishkama karma in the reply to Arjuna by Krishna in the following verses. So let us do the Shankaracharya's commentary in tomorrow's class. So Shankaracharya is describing this verse in relation with that jnana and karma, how we should understand it, for whom is jnana, for whom is karma. We will see this tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavada.
Thank you very much, Binduji. I've opened the chat and hand raising.
Namaste Karan.
Namaste, Binderji. I have a quick question. Sacrificial life, does that belong to Shruti or Smriti?
Smriti.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Prakash. I think then we wind up today.
Binduji,
We'll
I
meet
think
tomorrow.
I have a few questions, but I'll hold it till Friday because it is unfolding. Because you're talking about the
Okay.
relationship between knowledge, action, and wisdom, right?
Right.
Yes, I'll hold it till Friday. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Binduji, and thank you everyone for attending the session. So we'll meet tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST. And if you want to catch the replay, it's available on Clubhouse, or you could go into all the links that are shared. Hope to see you tomorrow. Over to you, Binduji, to close the session.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Karan. And thank you all of you for being there. We'll continue into the Shankaracharya's commentary on the first verse tomorrow. Hari Om. Good night.